So hello and welcome along to the Dads in Business video podcast series, where we try and speak to experts in the field to create conversations around topics to help busy working dads bring the best of themselves to work and also to home. And a big topic of that, as you know from previous sessions we've done and conversations that we have, is around parental confidence. You know, I didn't know what I was doing when I became a dad. What the heck is this? How do I do it? But also been more present and truly engaged, I think, with our kids is incredibly important. Something we can get guilty of when we get busy at work, because that's our role. And I'd really like to speak to people who can help us overcome those challenges and barriers. Because I'm no expert in it, I like to invite guests who are. So luckily this morning, I found one. I found a guest who is a
guest on podcast.
Yeah. She's an educational researcher. She's worked in learning, in teaching across 3 continents, I believe, and is the founder of a cool app called Aliki, which we'll find out more about through our discussion today. Claire Stead, morning to you. Give yourself a little introduction, please.
Well, so thank you so much for letting me come and join you and join all these fab dads, because it's super nice to actually get to talk to dads, because quite often it's the women that dominate. And so it's super nice. Hi, dads. It's great to see you. And thank you for having me on your podcast. So I am a teacher by training, always been in education, but education kind of failed me. I didn't really do very well at school. I never really got it. But I always knew that when you unlock education, when you unlock learning, not education necessarily, they're 2 different things, you get to find your passion. And when you find your passion, then you kind of become unstoppable. And that's really what I have wanted to do for children in everything I've done, is help them find their passion and help them go on their journey and their adventure of learning, whatever that might be. It might be dinosaurs today, it might be Harley Davidsons tomorrow. It doesn't really matter what it is, but all of that is building our capabilities and our competencies as we go along in our journey. So that's where I started. I was always fascinated by the children who never quite managed to get their pencil in their hand for long enough to actually do the writing. You know, those ones, what's the difference between those and the ones that just go off and fly? And so I started on a journey of investigating what was the difference between those children. And also what I found was those children who were struggling had parents who were struggling very often. And so there seemed to me to be some connection between the 2, and what could we do about it? And that's what took me on my journey to build Aliki and leave the classroom, leave education research, and head off into the parent land.
Into the parenting land, absolutely. And we're going to talk a lot, or focus a lot of energy on the first 1,000 days.
Yeah.
Why is that so important, Claire?
Well, it was for me. I'm going to stretch across, because of course I'm not as organised as I could have been. It was the bit that turned the lights on for me. So I was teaching in year 4. I then fell into education research. I then moved to Zambia and met a guy on a plane who wanted to change the way education took place in Africa. And he told me what he was going to do. Clearly, I shouldn't play poker. And he said, "You wouldn't do it that way." I said, "No." So he then said, "Well, here's some money, go make it happen." And I put the whole of primary education on a tablet for African kids to get international standard education in their own language. So that was 12,000 lesson plans, 5,000 pieces of interactive learning content in 9 languages, voiced and translated. One of those languages we need to stabilize and write the dictionary. So it was quite wowy. And we put it into classrooms, and I could see the massive difference it was making to kids. But there was still a group of kids that weren't quite switched on. And then that made me go further and say, well, it's not about making it active learning necessarily. There's something else. Then somebody showed me this graph, and that is the science of the brain development and the learning in the first 1,000 days. That blue bit is the first year. That is the brain development that is happening in your baby during that first year and going into the second year. And you can see that it's absolutely bonkers. And what happens is it sort of flatlines from, oh gosh, it's always the other way around, isn't it? Flatlines from here on out. And that doesn't mean that the learning stops. It means that this amazing opportunity of learning has happened or is happening during this 1,000 days. And it's the more we use this 1,000 days, the better we will lay foundations for our baby's learning. And those foundations are the foundations for literally everything. So the first 1,000 days sets the outcomes for your baby's academics. It sets their health, who they're going to marry, their wealth, their relationships, how they're going to function in society. That doesn't mean that it's all over after 1,000 days. But what it means is we've got this amazing opportunity to set really strong, firm foundations. And so that's why I'm absolutely focused on working with parents to help support them to build those really strong, firm foundations, because Harvard says it's like building a house. If you get the foundations right, then the walls go on and it stops being, it's not wobbly, the roof fits on, it's all great. And we can build on the learning that our children start with in those first 1,000 days. So that's why I'm all about those first 1,000 days.
Interesting. It's fascinating what we don't see that's going on in our kids' brains, isn't it? But it's all there, and it's amazing what manifests after that time. A couple of things I just wanted to sort of clarify. The difference between education and learning is this where we create our kids' characters, our kids' curiosity, our kids' tenacity? Is it all there?
Yeah.
Because they don't teach. For example, I hate using the term so much about myself, but entrepreneurial people. You get kids that are great at school. They'll sit the lessons, they'll do this, they'll do this, they'll do this, but they don't have a creative or curious bone in their body, and that's fine. But that's what the education system is more suited for. The ones who are curious, is that also embedded in that first 1,000 days as well?
Okay, so what we've got is an education system that teaches in one style, in one way, for one type of learning. It's Sir Ken Robinson, in his amazing TED Talk. If you've not seen Sir Ken Robinson's TED Talk, it's the most watched TED Talk ever. It's really worth watching, all about creativity in schools. It's really worth watching. And he talks about the fact that it's academic snobbery, that we have all gone down this academic snobbery route. It's the why my husband didn't do an apprenticeship, because he was supposed to go to university. Actually, he's now in his 50s and he so realizes he should have done an apprenticeship. He would have been so much happier and not towed the line, and that sort of thing. So we have this one way of believing success is, and it might not be that it fits everybody. In the first 1,000 days, we are laying the foundations for everything. So the child who dances a lot or kicks a football a lot actually is beginning to, they say that learning happens through 10,000 hours. And, so the child who starts kicking a ball at 0 and thoroughly enjoys kicking a ball, so they do it more because success breeds success, is going to get necessarily more hours under their belt and therefore better and therefore ahead. And because they have success breeds success, and you have this cycle of success. So that's all laid early. So what we present to our children in those early days is why these foundations are so important, because if we give them experiences early, we're beginning those 10,000 hours. Now, that does not mean, please, shouting loudly, they're not doing ABCs or 1, 2, 3s. It's absolutely not about that. It's about the experiences that you give your children in the close personal relationships and that sort of thing. And the school system, the difference between education and learning is education is the stuff that you get, the diet almost of content, which our school system is one route of, and that does not necessarily enhance a dancer's sort of self-esteem and love of life, because PE doesn't really happen in the UK very much, and they don't get that fulfillment and success reward, the dopamine hit that we get from reward, from success. And learning for me is the bit where I gain the skills, the concepts, the knowledge that help me move forward. It's the grit, it's the sense of humor, it's the character building stuff that makes us who we are. And if you then chuck in a dose of passion, then you get this sparkly, amazing, wowy adventure that you are going to journey on, or your child is going to journey on. And if they know where they're wanting to go, if they find that passion, then they can start unlocking what makes them tick. So I said in the beginning, I failed at school, and I failed dismally at school. But when I got to teach training college, they said to me, why should we take you? I said, I wouldn't. And they said, really? Why would you say that at interview? And I said, well, because I failed everything. But if you take me, I will be a good teacher. And I am a good teacher because I know what it's like to fail. I know how to pick you up and support you, turn you around and show you your journey and your way. And so I'm a good teacher because that was my passion. And I unlocked that passion by going to university. So for having got 18 U's at O-level and taken them for 4 years in a row, like I couldn't unlock the education system, but I have a degree and I got a distinction in my dissertation and, and my teaching, and I found my passion. I unlocked my journey. And that's what I'm talking about.
I mean, congratulations on that, by the way. It's
some years ago.
2 fingers to the education system, isn't it? I mean, you sound like, yeah, I can be a good teacher, but it sounds to me like you're talking about I can be a good leader. I will lead these kids to help them find out what it is that they want to do. And I think often we dampen down kids' ambitions or anything. I was just thinking when you were talking then about finding their kids' passion. Yeah, beyond the first 1,000 days, my eldest is nearly 8 at the time we're recording this, and to get him showered in a night or get his shoes on in the morning, nah. Tell him he's playing football in the morning, he'll pack his boot bag, he'll clean his shoes, he'll fold his shirt, he'll zip it up, and he'll put it there ready to take out. Incredible. It is, but it's also about how you approach it. And this is something that dads particularly, well, I think everybody finds it quite revolutionary when you work this one through. Okay, so your son is not necessarily motivated in getting dressed in the morning. It's far more exciting to watch whatever's on the telly or play with the cars or pick on his sister, whatever it is. It's far more exciting to do that because at the end of it lies school. So he hasn't chosen to go to school, and I'm not saying school's a bad thing. I'm just saying he hasn't made that choice. There's no motivation there for him to purposefully get forward. You alternatively, on the other hand, know there's a time limit. You're on the focus of, we've got to do it. Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. And you're on the drill of get up, get on, going. Spin it round. Try doing whatever you do, especially with toddlers. Whatever you do, don't put your shoes on. No, don't put your shoes on. Oh my goodness. Suddenly he's got dressed, and suddenly it's a fun thing. Or what are you going to do? Are you going to put your pants on first or your socks on first? How we communicate with those kids, and this for my husband has been absolutely like brain transformational, because he was on the get up. I said get up, come on, get up. At which point the kids go, no, I don't want to. And it starts with this.
Yeah, exactly. You're now batting against each other. And rather than saying, give them choice, as soon as we give kids choice, even from the earliest of days, do you want this one or this one? Do you want to put your shoes on at the door, or do you want to put your shoes on in the sitting room? You're still getting what you want, but they've made a choice. They have some ownership. They have some agency in the situation. And very often as parents, we take that away. And when we take that away, we bat. When we get both in a corner, it's pretty key to come out. And that's when we start thinking as parents, we have to win. And when we feel that we have to win, actually, it's a hiding to no one, being happy.
Yeah, I mean, when you phrase it like that, it's fascinating to connect it back to sort of work environments where at work you wouldn't bark at someone and expect them to do what it is you're asking them to do. Yeah, we're told time and time again, aim for win-win, go for win-win relationships, build relationships, leadership, all this. Then we go home, we almost put that hat on the hat stand, put our dad hat on, and it does become the do this, dictator, I am telling you what to do. And I'm guilty for it. I'm terrible for that. My temperature goes up because I see a clock, as you mentioned. We're getting towards school time. They've not done this, they've not done this, they've not done this. And in my mind, I justify that by sort of saying, I need to achieve this. It's an achievement. They can't be late. We need to do this, this, and this. I'm helping them by shouting at them. But I'm doing the exact opposite, I assume, because it creates a stressful environment for everyone.
You're just raising the cortisol levels of everybody, and setting everybody up for this area, this sort of stressful environment where it's sort of combative. Now, that does not mean that children should not have rules, not have boundaries, not have. Sometimes no is important, and sometimes, you know, we need to set boundaries so that children feel safe and feel secure. But think of those boundaries and how you set them in the child's viewpoint, because what we don't want to do is get them reacting in a flight or fight. We want them to be reacting with their thinking brains that are very immature, that are still developing. And we need to help them to play. And I'm saying this very carefully. With the way we play, we need to be considerate of our children's response. We need to be emotionally intelligent for our children, to learn to be emotionally intelligent. We are models for our children. And so if you want a child who will bark back at you, bark at them. If you want a child who's capable, competent, can build relationships, then build a relationship with them. And it starts from conception. Don't wait.
And where is that? How much of it, Claire, let me see if I can phrase the question right, how much of it is a mirror of their learned behavior versus, well, they're an anxious kid, or they are an angry kid? How much of it is in that foundations that you mentioned versus how much of it is the mirror of parenting?
If you think about it, when a baby is growing in a womb, the environment in which they grow is the environment in which the parental environment is. So if mum is flooded with cortisol, those stress hormones are really high, then the baby is growing in that environment. When we are stressed, we don't breathe nicely. Our shoulders come up. We don't communicate well. We bark at each other. We don't sit and rub our tummy. We don't, if you come in from work, imagine your wife's pregnant, you come in from work, the day's been horrendous, the tube's been awful, it's raining, you dropped your briefcase on the way out of the car, like stress levels are high, you haven't drunk anything for hours, so you just need a glass of water, and you haven't had anything to eat for ages. You walk in and your wife says, oh, I don't know, you didn't go to the dentist. And so now it's all like, Brr. You are not going to sit down and snuggle with your wife's baby bump at that point, because frankly, you hate everybody and everybody hates you, and it's all a horrible environment. So what we need to do is try and bring everything down so that the environment in which our baby is growing is calm, charming, pleasant, cozy, snuggly, all words that aren't necessarily male, but actually you help set the tone for the environment that this baby's growing in. What are you doing in your family home to make your family home harmonious? And I think that's your job. I think, that is a job, because that impacts on how your baby grows. Because in answer to your question, I don't know the answer, but if the environment I grew up in was anxious, guess what I'm going to be? And if my environment was sunny and lovely and cozy, I'm going to come out like with full of joys of spring and ready to go. And that's what we want for our kids. We want them to thrive. So let's set that tone. And as dads, you are in a brilliant situation, because you aren't, the problem with pregnancy that I think is that we focus on birth, Birth is one day in a marathon of life that is this parenting journey we are on. Antenatal classes are about, you know, yes, you've got to build your baby's brain and you can do that through play. Yes, we need attachment. What's that? Yes, you know, your baby's growing, the hormones are changing, you're changing, your wife's changing. And maybe they might mention sex. I don't know. But there's not a lot that goes on in those antenatal classes that prepare you for being a parent. And parenting lasts for at least 18 years. And some would say longer. I'm in the other end, and it's longer. And so why aren't we doing any preparation in that period? Why aren't we learning about our child's development? Why aren't we setting the tone? And why aren't we thinking about what we can do to impact our kids? Because when we do that, we get good at parenting. We aren't frightened at parenting. We're, you know, just like it's really important to understand if you're going to go into the birth, what you're going to go and see. I think it's really important that when you come home and you look at the baby in the car seat in the sitting room on day one, you think, now what? Oh, we're parents. What do we do? And, you know, maybe one of you will be brave and unplug the car seat and look at them a bit longer. But you know, from there on in, the journey starts and there's no help. And that for me is unfair, because then we get to the point where in year 4, the child's playing up, the parents hate the child hates the parents. It's this environment of, or you've got through and it's all fine, but you've got through by bundling. And I don't think we should. I think we should go through confidently.
Yeah, I like that you've got through it by bundling line, because I can completely, it's like as if you were there for the birth of my kids. because yeah, you know, I often say, and you've heard me say it before, you know, they don't teach dad in school. And you know, I guess rightly so, the attention is on making sure the mom who's carrying your kid is good and comfortable with giving birth. But that doesn't discount that there is value and importance in looking after the dad as well. And I think there's a fine line between sound like you're moaning and whinging, but there has to be a point where you're educated about your responsibilities more, you're showed support, there is community around there to help you prepare for this thing. And yeah, I completely get there's a new human in the room, and they're our entire responsibility for the next rest of our lives. Shall I go and put kettle on? Shall we have our tea? Is that it then? And it's such a whirlwind to a point, and then there you go, you're on your own. And that definitely tripped me up. I was still employed with my first before going into self-employment a couple of years after. But I had 2 weeks off for maternity leave, back to work. It was as if I'd had a holiday, get back at it.
And no one else in the office has been on that journey. You're the only one. And you might, as you say, you might have both been in Marbella. They have no idea what you've been doing, really. How was the baby? Oh, good. And then, is the photocopier got some paper?
Back on it then. Come on. Never mind this sense of complete overwhelm that in retrospect I think I felt with, oh my God, what on earth is this? You know, is everything, it was a commute to work, it was 50 miles away. So it's like, is everything all right at home? This constant, I don't know, awareness that I should, and guilt, this is where the guilt started to come from. I should be at home. I've got to be at work. Yeah. You should be here. You're back later than you said you would be. And it was like bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, you almost can't win in any situation. And I think because it's not happening to you directly, you will become completely out of control. And the only thing, the nearest I can get to it is my husband announced when my kids were 2 and 4 that we were going to go to Zambia. To live. And it was quite a transformation from Somerset. He announced it. He was going. So I now had a choice. I'm either staying with you and going, or I'm not. And she told me my internet's unstable. Hopefully it's all right. But I went kicking and screaming, and I went and got there and felt completely and utterly out of control. And consequently, I got more and more depressed and more introverted and unable to cope with the smallest of things. And I remember my 4-year-old saying, "Have we got any yellow paint?" Well, of course we didn't have any yellow paint. And I was on the floor dribbling in tears, holding this empty yellow paint. "I don't have any yellow paint." And I can absolutely relate to that out of control feeling. And it was the out of controlness that got me. I hadn't made the choice to go. I hadn't made the choice to make this massive move. And it wasn't in my control to make it better. So that's totally small compared to what dads go through. But I absolutely empathize with this being out of control and never quite getting it right.
Well, I guess it's this happens to you sort of thing. Parenting happens to you. So therefore there's a sense of detachment. I can't control it. I can't control when my kid cries. I can't stop it when the wife gets stressed. I'll go back to safety of what I have more control around and what I can impact better. That was certainly, I think, on reflection, my attitude. And it was incredibly hard to try and break that down and get over it, because I'd not been made aware of, well, ultimately what to do. Yeah, my dad, for context, my dad passed away many years ago. I was the first in my family to have kids, first in my social circle to have kids. I was 29, so I was still quite young. Bang, there's a child. Bloody hell. What do I do now? So this whole piece around confidence in that first 1,000 days, I think, hopefully for other dads who are watching and perhaps silently struggling, because there is that, it's only me. I can't share this. I can't talk about this. I've got to be the man, the breadwinner. Not really providing what you said you would if there's all this going on in your head.
And you know what? I think one of the other things to remember is that there's a massive transitional thing that's happening. Your body's changing. You as a man, your body is changing. Your hormones are changing. Your wife's body, partner's body is changing. Your relationship is changing. And there's quite a lot of jealousy sometimes that this baby's come in and taken your wife away. You used to have comfy and cozy, and then you went into hospital, and now you come out and it's all up in the air. And I think it's also really important to remember that, yes, I think dads absolutely go through that. And I think all of them do. I think it would be a surprise to hear any dad not say that first day, that first week, that first month isn't a kind of slap around the face with a wet kipper. But I will also tell you that women are going through it too. And that it's about finding both of you again. Because when you find both of you, you build your relationship strong. When you build your relationship strong, you can give your baby a really strong, firm foundation. So putting the two of you, having the strength as a man to be able to open the conversation and say, I'm stuck, helps build the foundation for your baby. Because when you open up, I can guarantee the woman will open up too. And there will be an open conversation. 90% of the time. I can't imagine. I would imagine. And when we make ourselves slightly vulnerable, rather than put the wall up, it's exactly like we were talking again about earlier with kids. If we keep going against each other, we can't find a way through. When we open up and say, I'm struggling here, you can find a way together. There's a route through. And so know that you are doing the best for your child by taking the risk to say, this ain't working out how I thought it was going to work. That being said, being a dad is not all bad. Being a dad is also really fabulous. It's got lots of fun. And very often I'm horribly jealous of my husband because his relationship with the kids, particularly now that they're older, is all full of fun. It's laughter, it's joy, it's hilarity. They're all on the floor, this rough and tumble, and I get the soft side. So mine will come and give me a kiss, good night, but the same 14-year-old will go round to dad and he'll be picked up, thrown around, chucked up and down, and I'm like, it's 9:30 at night.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was chatting to another chap on an episode of this, and he said, when we become a dad for the first time, we always focus on the things we can't do anymore, rather than the opportunities or things we can do moving forwards. And it really connected when he said that. And likewise, my kids getting slightly older, nearly 8, 5, and 3. Yeah, I play the monster. We play guns. We play wrestling. We play in the park, and that's where I find I'm enjoying being a parent more, because I found so much pressure on the first stage of it to not do anything wrong and provide.
And if I tell you that the way that you play actually gives your child different brain development skills. So dad's really important, because the way you play is not how women play. And we see it time and time again. You know that one where there's that thing where what mum sees, what dad sees. That one. It's really true, like really true. Even now, it's really true. My kids are 19, 17, and 14. Still true. I see. I'm like, oh, be careful. My husband will, do random things, and they'll take risks with him, and he'll allow that to happen in a way that I'd never would. Now, what that's doing is building their self-confidence and their resilience. But go back to what I said earlier, you need to be the emotionally intelligent one that reads their signal. Because if you push it too far, you will frighten them. When you frighten them, you pull them back, and then potentially you can put things in place that are problematic. But when you are emotionally intelligent and reading your child's signals, you can push the play into a physical environment of pushing boundaries. Now, what that's also doing is breaking down. I know you had Bernie on the other day, and it's breaking down those primitive reflexes by turning your child upside down. You get the vestibular system working, you get the brain connecting in a different kind of a way. And so it is important for our children, and you can see in the nursery children who have got dads involved. They're the ones that will take the risks. They're the ones that they know. When we help our children through our play to take risks, we're teaching them how to cope with risk, to assess a situation. If we are constantly doing what we as mums would choose to do, which is, careful, no, don't do that. Actually, how as a 17-year-old do I know what risk I should be taking? So by enabling the play that you guys do, you are, nature's dead clever. It made us different for a reason, because we build different parts of our child's development. So kids who have play with dad often have greater self-resilience.
Interesting. So it builds resilience by having that active play and that adventurous spirit, I guess, is making you more resilient. Interesting.
And risk assessment. They're all really important. And if you put it into the context of a 17-year-old kid, I mean, mine was in the park the other day in Cambridge, like nice place. It was with a group of mates, and they were doing boy banter. And they were walking through the park doing boy banter. Another group of boys came past on bikes, heard the boy banter and thought it was aimed at them, went ahead because they were on bikes, got off the bikes, waited, and punched the living daylights out of one of these guys walking through. Mine, big rugby player, was actually outside he'd gone out of the park by this stage. He was ahead in the group, so didn't see it happen. But I said to him, what would you have done in that situation? Because that's a horrendous situation and one that we don't want. But having those abilities to talk those things through and find out what would you have actually done, and hearing his comments, I know that he's had that resilience built into him. He would be trying to bring it down. He would be trying to appease the situation rather than hyping up whatever the situation had, occurred. We've got to take what we're teaching. Babies need to learn everything, literally everything, from learning that eye contact is really important right the way through to understanding quantum physics, if that's what the route is. But all of that learning starts in those tiny, tiny moments in the beginning. And when we lay really strong foundations, what we're doing is laying foundations for later on. So it's about understanding what I do today is the foundation of who I want to create as a child in the end, and the journey I want to go on.
And yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I think as kids start to merge together after a period of restriction, there's going to be interesting to see how that evolves, I think, over time. And you mentioned about resilience and vulnerability and confidence as a family unit. How have you seen, from your educational lens, if you like, how have you seen the past 2 years since the pandemic, if we're talking about the first 1,000 days? My youngest is 3 and nearly a half, about 3.5. So most of his life, 2/3 of his life, he knows no different other than these people in masks, restrictions. Not that he knows what a restriction is, but he won't have been able to do things that he could have before. My oldest, suddenly from overnight, going to school every day, likes his routine, got told you're not going to school. I'm not a teacher, my wife's not a teacher, but suddenly we became teachers. Like many people, my business stopped overnight and I had to try and figure that out. That was a challenging time. And how are you seeing that playing out now as we, touch wood, move out of that restrictive time? What are the risks and exposures that you're seeing, how it's affected kids' mental health, how it's affected that family unit?
I think it was a hugely stressful time, and I actually think the most damaged group, the 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds who never got to sit their exams, they never got their rites of passage, that's not decrying anybody else, but I think that was a horrendously damaging period of time. And having had 2 of mine go through that, and watched the impact it had on them, it was huge. And I think for the younger children who were at school, to be honest, the reaction of the school, what did the school do, almost set the tone for how successful they came out of that period of time. Some schools did an amazing job. I'm a governor of a school down the road, and I nearly wrote to the paper to tell them how amazing that they had been. They were even doing one-to-one reading with the children online. I mean, it was truly extraordinary what they managed to do. Other schools did literally the bare minimum. And I think that's socially and emotionally incredibly damaging. But I also think intellectually it's incredibly damaging, because if you've been given some worksheets and no one marks them, and the school don't care, what does that say to my next stage in my academic career? I don't need to do the work because no one cares. And so it doesn't set me up for success, that success that we want. I think the children have learned resilience, absolutely. You know, we've got to look for the silver linings. People have had more time together. That may be good or that may be bad, depending on the family situation. Where it has been good, I think it has been really positive. And I think there have been some very positive things that have come out of it. I think people have very much more gone back to nature, very much more focused on the smaller things in life, celebrating the being together thing rather than anything else. What I'm finding in the classrooms, that I see, because I'm not in classrooms on a regular basis, other than being a governor, is that children are incredibly resilient and in the main cracking through it and coping. The little people, the people who were born during the pandemic, that's really tough. And I think kids there's lots of positives in that there was a lot of focused family time. There wasn't a load of visitors turning up, and there wasn't the rush to go to baby this and baby that and baby the other, and actually play happened at home, interaction happened at home. But so those bonds are really strong. But what we're finding from the research is that we are finding language and communication skills are significantly down, because kids haven't practiced. The telly's been on too often. Parents are on phones. The interaction isn't happening. And in those tiny foundations, that's what we need to be putting in place to make sure that that's really strong foundations. The more we talk to our children, the more children will talk to us. The better their language development will be. Surround them with language and they will gain language. And I think the other thing that we are finding, I was reading, gosh, it's just gone off the top of my head for the moment. The other area that's really been impacting, I'll come back to it. But there are two areas, but the language and communication is significant. And also that some parents have put their children in nursery. Those children have been in nursery for 2 years and they've never been in the classroom. The parents have never been in the classroom. So they send their children into this place that they can never go. That's extraordinary. Why would we do that? You know, schools and nurseries should be places where parents are warm and welcome, and it's a triangulated partnership. So I think it has been extremely challenging. That doesn't mean it needs the impact needs to last. I think we need to be proactive in what we're doing to combat it, because Daniel Almond talks about his fetal origin syndrome theory. He's an economist from Harvard, and he looked at, he was thinking that everything must be rooted in fetus foundation. And he went back and found a data set where something catastrophic had happened and some people were, you know, so he went back to the Spanish flu. And this is a while back. He went back to Spanish flu, where in America there happened to also be a census. And he looked at the impact on learning outcomes of children. And what we had was a graph that was growing nicely like this: academic outcomes. The Spanish flu came, the academic outcomes go down like this, Spanish flu goes away, academic outcomes carry on. And then they followed those children who had been fetuses during the pandemic and the Spanish flu pandemic. And he followed them through into their 60s, I think. And he found that they were less educated, less academic, earned less, married less well, you know, life had more disabilities, more challenges in life, all the way through. Now that's going back to that cortisol thing. You know, if you've been surged with cortisol, it's a stressy environment, but we've learned from that. So let's us be proactive for our children. If that was the environment that your child was growing up in, that's okay. Just let's make sure that we use this time now to really bond and input and help support our children through the play that we do, the experiences we give them, and the interaction that we have with our children, so that we can build stronger. And when
what a challenge for that. And I guess, like you say, from the research you mentioned, and if you have any links for that, please share it as well. We're not going to know for many years what the outcome is. I know that my youngest doesn't speak as well as the other two, whether that's just him or the scenario that we've all been through, who knows? I mean, I guess as we start to look to wrapping up here, Claire, we need to be proactive about it. You mentioned that, you know, the pandemic's happened to us. Let's cool. Let's figure out how we can respond more positively to it, so we don't, I guess, risk being, I don't know, would it be a victim culture? My kid went through a pandemic, therefore, what can we start to do? What can dads, parents, families proactively do, I guess, to check in on your kids' mental health? What have you observed? What can we do to, I guess, prevent it or really nurture the skills that our kids have got inherent in them? And what can we do ourselves, I guess, to check in with our own mental health in that respect, to make sure we're delivering what we need to deliver for our family?
Put your phone down is a really great start. Start interacting, start having fun, engage. Find the fun, not just for you, but the fun for everybody. And be emotionally available and aware. And play at a level that works well for your child. Interact regularly. Find the success in every day, for you, for your child, for your partner, for the dog. I mean, find successes. Catch yourself being good, because success breeds success and outcomes will flow from success. And relationships are built on two people. and it requires two people to make change, but the only person that we can change is ourselves. And when we change ourselves, other people change as a result of how we're interacting with them. So if you don't like a situation, change yourself, because when you change yourself, I promise you, you'll change the outcome. And look inside, and don't beat yourself up, because that's not a success, and it doesn't breed a success. That just says, oh yeah, I'm rubbish, and that doesn't help anyone. All that does is make a more and more negative cycle. What you need to do is look inside and say, oh, I didn't handle that terribly well, so okay, what can I do next time? What could I have done differently? And then go back and redo it, do it differently. Walk in the house, and if necessary, physically walk out again and start back again and go, how are you doing? You know, be emotionally available, because when you're emotionally available, other people will be too, and it'll make a massive, massive difference. With those who've got babies, those who are pregnant, it's about engaging in tiny, tiny, tiny things. And I mean tiny things. So it's not about buying pink plastic, blue plastic, and expensive toys, having a fancy cot. In fact, you don't need to spend a thing on having a baby, as far as I'm concerned. Your baby doesn't care how the nursery looks. Like, take the pressure off, but be there. Your baby really cares that you are there. Your baby really cares that you are interacting. Your partner will gain from watching how you interact. You can be a role model for your whole family, and that is enormously empowering. It might be happening to you, but take control, but not be controlling. Demonstrate the person that you want everybody else to be by being that person yourself. Are you emotionally available? Are you open? Are you playful? Are you interactive? Are you engaging? Are you listening? Are you seeing? Are you hearing? All of those are going to build these strong bonds with your baby and make your family work really, really well.
No, brilliant. I think there's some real good points there for soon to be, expectant, planning to be dads, but also those that have got the kids that we've gone through the pandemic with. There's some things there that I can certainly take away. That emotionally available, the whole I am rubbish, the guilt versus shame approach thing. It's a fascinating language-based thing that you tell yourself, isn't it?
And it's completely pointless, that I am useless. Only where you take yourself, it follows. So if you take yourself down a negative route, guess what? Negative things happen. If you celebrate the tiny, I'm sorry, I froze for a moment. If you celebrate the tiny wins, your brain has no idea whether you won the lottery, whether you made the best deal, or whether you cleaned your teeth. So celebrate those tiny wins as if they were the best deal in the whole wide world that you brokered. Because when you do that, you start this cycle of success. And starting this cycle of success is how we build confidence, how we build the emotional positivity and availability. And it's just fundamentally important to do that from the outset.
Yeah, I'm my own worst enemy with that. I'm always, okay, I've done that, what's next? I've done that, what's next? I've done that, what's next? I never really stopped to recognize or acknowledge or celebrate successes, and I get told many times to do it. If
you haven't got 5 tiny wins by lunchtime, you're not doing it right. And I literally mean celebrate cleaning your teeth.
So this is a tiny win. This is a big win. I was having a chat like this. It's a great win. Claire, I can't let you leave without telling us about your app that you're creating, or have created. Sorry,
I've created.
Aliki.
Aliki, yes.
Tell us about Aliki before I let you go.
Okay. Aliki is an app from conception to help parents build their baby's brain and build parenting confidence, one play activity at a time. Basically, it was because I saw too many kids fail. I then saw too many parents feeling like failures. And so then I moved to working with parents because I wanted to change outcomes for children. When we did a research study with University College London, education department, Institute for Education, sorry, we found that parents using the Aliki app were significantly more confident than parents not using the Aliki app within 4 weeks. And basically it is tiny activities. I'm just going to quickly show you. This is the new version that's not quite out yet, but it's coming soon. You get an activity to do every day, and that bit there is the activity. It's tiny. And that's the point. It is tiny for a reason, because you can fit it in. It's a tiny, tiny thing. This is reading to your baby. Then it's going to tell you why you're going to do it. And that's the bit that dads absolutely love. This is the, if there was a handbook, this is a handbook to how to be a parent, a great parent. Because this is the logic. This is the bit that goes, oh, I'm not just being an idiot singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. It tells you how to do it so that you're doing it right. Tells you what you need, and in this case you need a book and a baby, not a lot of stuff. And there's the science and research behind it and a link out to the paper so you can find out more. And then when you click in here, you get all the areas of development that you are doing by doing that reading. Then you have this week's activities. Those are the 7 activities you're going to do for the age of your baby today. So it's specific to the age of your baby. It's based on their birth date. If they were prem and you need to age adjust, you just put the birth date back 2 weeks or 1 week. And if it's too tricky, change the birth date again. You do it by age. You can, it goes from literally from conception right the way up to 2. You can do it by subject. And in the new version, it will be mapped to the development matters, which is the curriculum. You can favorite the ones that you like. And in the new version, you can either sort by subject or age. And then up in the top, you can go to the profile and you get your brain buckets. And this is the exciting bit. This shows you over time how you are filling your baby's brain in all the areas of learning and development. So it's incredibly simple, but that's the point. And you'll be doing 40% of the things anyway, and that's the point.
And that's it, isn't it? I like that the dads are like that because it tells me why I should do it. The first, well, why am I going to do that? They don't need me to do that.
I mean, things like, I don't know if you're the same, but my husband found that doing that baby talk, hello baby, really stupid. Like he wouldn't do it. But it turns out that the reason we do that is to slow down the vowel sounds so that your baby can take statistical analysis of which vowel sounds they're going to need, and then they bin them, the rest.
It blows my mind. It really
well, stuff like that, you suddenly think, wow, okay, I can do this.
I can say that in a silly voice.
Exactly. I mean, that's what it's doing. It's like, yeah, I'm empowered. Yeah. Wow,
brilliant. So where can we find that app? Is it on app stores? Is there a website? What's
called Aliki, Oliiki, really random name. And it's a little smiley, I'll show you. There you go. It's called Aliki, and it's on all good app stores. It's on Android and Apple, and it is free for the first 7 days. At the moment, you need to buy a block of 3 months or 6 months, depending on the age of the baby, but it's going to become a subscription, or you buy a lifetime, and then you've got it for all of your babies. And if you do that, why not contact me, and I can do it for you.
And how do we find you?
You will find me on at alikiapp.com, or you can email me at hello@aliki.
Superb. Claire, lots and lots to take away there. We've had a fantastic chat. Some good resources as well. If you could send me those links, that'd be brilliant, so I can include them in descriptions and whatnot. Loads for dads to take away there. So thank you very much for spending time with us and being a sympathiser for the dad cause. Claire Stead, lovely to chat to you, and we'll see you again soon.
Lovely to chat to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Bye.
Bye.